If it's the second Sunday of the month, then you know it's time for me to play with three unusual items. So today I'm going to show you how to use a dog leash, paint brushes, and a hula skirt to create easy home decor on a budget. Yep, it's time for the Just Our Imagination Challenge. Let's get started. For the first Dollar Tree hack, I'll be using a hula skirt along with three of these metal flowers that I got from the Dollar General. I'll paint one red, one white, and then the third one I'll spray with a clear matte finish and top it off with the Waverly Color Ocean. While I was waiting for the paint to dry, I dug out this plaque that I had made years ago using three pieces of 1x3 lumber. It had collected a lot of dust, spider webs, you name it. So I used my sander just to clean it up and get rid of all the icky stuff. I came back inside and started working on my first must use item, which was the Dollar Tree hula skirt. I took three sections of the skirt, braided it. I didn't really like it, but I hung on to it because I am going to use it later. I thought I was going to wrap it around sticks, but I didn't like that. So, what I ended up doing was taking two sections of the skirt, holding the top together with a piece of painter's tape, and simply twisting the two strands around each other. Now, the hula skirt is a really good substitute for raffia, even though it's more paper like, but you can twist it and make bows out of it. You can braid it. You can do so many things with it. So, I made two um, twists, if you will, like you see me doing here. Now, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Robin, and I'm so glad you decided to join me today in this video. If you like hanging out around the craft table and you're having fun here today, I'd really love to have you join our community and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any upcoming videos. Now it's time to put my piece together. I am using super glue and a dab of hot glue to attach my flowers to my board. Now, as you see, I have cut off all the metal stakes and I left just the little piece there in the center of each flower because that little piece of stake will fit perfectly down inside the slats of my board. I think my super glue must have been a little old because it was really, really stringy, but at any rate, it did the job. So I held each flower in place for a few seconds before moving on to the next step, which was hot gluing my hula skirt, which has now become my flower stems down under each flower and then to the board itself. I left the boards natural because I love the look of real natural wood. The only thing I did do at the end, and I didn't show it, was I did spray the entire piece with some clear matte sealer, and that was mainly to protect the paint on the metal flowers. Now, here's the braid that I made earlier, and I decided to put it to use. It would be cute to make some little leaves. Now, I could have easily used the leaves that I pulled off of the stakes, but I felt like this would just add to that rustic look. So I kind of folded it around, tried to make it into the shape of a leaf as best I could, and then glued one of my hula skirt leaves down to each stem. I think I think it turned out pretty cute. You guys will have to let me know what you think down in the comments. Now, the flowers, as I mentioned, I bought from Dollar General. They're $1 all day long, and I try to keep them in my stash because they are they're a quarter cheaper, of course, than the Dollar Tree. So to embellish the flowers a little further, I grabbed 3 buttons, glued them down to the center, and now I am using some antique wax just to kind of dirty it up a little bit, nothing crazy, and just hit the edges of each flower and inside some of the petals. I also took the antique wax and lightly went along the stems just to give them some color. Now, I didn't really want to leave the stems looking like they did. So at first, I tried the celery chalk paint, and that was just too light. So I went to my moss color by Waverly, and I'm just dabbing that along here and there. And that was the perfect shade of green. I had one of the palettes from the Dollar Tree that I'd used in a previous project. And as you see, I'm using some Spanish moss and I'm pulling it out of the bag and rolling it between my hands. I find you get less mess this way and it makes it just a little easier to deal with. And I'm going to fill in all the slats like you see there. Now, another benefit to rolling it between your hands is you can pull it apart with virtually no problem. So, if you guys have any other tips on working with Spanish moss or floral moss, feel free to leave them down in the comments below because I'm always looking for new ways to work with moss. I love working with it, but it is messy. But rolling it between your hands makes all the difference. Now for the hanger, I'm using the dog leash, or at least part of it, and I'm stapling it into place with what has to be the easiest stapler I've ever used. My hands cannot press down very hard. This one is rechargeable. It uses staples. It shoots brad nails. I've always got it linked in my Amazon store, so check it out if you're in need of a really good stapler. So once I had that stapled down, I trimmed off the excess, and this is what I ended up with. You guys let me know what you think. I love it. I'm going to start this next home decor piece out using 2 of the large shelves from the Dollar Tree. And the reason I'm using 2 is because I want a more substantial sign. I want it a little thicker. So I'm using my Gorilla Wood Glue to attach the 2 pieces together, applying a really generous amount because I don't want this sucker going anywhere. And I'm just using my craft stick to spread the glue around, making sure that it hits all the areas. I clamped it together really well and set it aside to dry. Today is the Just Our Imagination Challenge, and I am so thrilled to have been chosen as this month's co host alongside Kathy Joe DIYs and Rustic and Lace DIY, who are always the host of this fantastic challenge every month. Please go by their channels, check them out. They're wonderful creators. There will also be a playlist linked down below where I know you will find more fun hacks using these 3 must-use items that we had to use today. Thank you, Kathy, Joe, and Brenda, for selecting me as this month's co-host. Now back to the DIYs. As co host, I got to choose one of the must use items, and I chose a dog leash. Now, being a dog lover, that shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody. So, the first thing I did was to cut off the stitched end that holds the hasp in place. And I always save those because they have so many uses. Then I'm going to take the rest of it outside and give it one good coat of this matte spray paint. While the paint on the leash was drying, I came back in and began to work on my shelves. And all I'm doing is giving them sort of a rough coat of the Waverly ink chalk paint, and I hit the front, sides, and the back. I then took my chip brush with some plaster chalk paint and began to distress the top. Now, in hindsight, I wish I had done this in reverse. I wish I'd put the plaster on the bottom and then distress the top with the black, but I still love the way this project turns out. Hindsight's 2020. Anyway, if you've been around my channel for a hot minute, you know that one of my favorite distressing techniques is using the rough side of a kitchen sponge to add texture and some wood grain, so to speak. So I loaded up the rough side with some elephant chalk paint, and I am trying to tone down some of that plaster, which obviously I got too much of in certain spots. And I go over the top, and I also distress the edges using the kitchen sponge. Now that my leash is dry, I cut it down into 2 strips, and I am measuring where I need those pieces to go so that I have room for my design in the center. Once everything was dry, I pulled out this chalk couture transfer, and since it's the first time I've used it, I'm going to fuzz it on this cloth, which simply means I'm taking off some of the sticky off the back so that it won't lift up my paint. Now, I know not everybody has chalk couture, and I'm not even sure that they have this mesh transfer anymore. As of this voiceover, I searched Amazon high and low. I think I searched it pretty well, and I could not find this particular saying. If I get the chance, I will definitely try to search other places and see if I can find either a stencil or a silkscreen transfer for you guys. And if I do, I will definitely link it down below. I'm using chalk paste and a squeegee that I always get from Amazon. And I do have that linked in my Amazon store in my description box. So if you're interested, definitely go check it out. This is really good chalk paste. I've not had a problem with it. And as you see, I'm just gliding it over the transfer. You don't want to apply pressure to the actual mesh part, which is where the saying is, because you could get bleed through. Then you just simply lift up the edge and reveal a perfect image. That's always my favorite part. I love it so much. I thought the wording looked a little too new and bright, so I very, very lightly dipped my chip brush into the antique wax, dabbed off the excess onto that towel, and I'm just very, very lightly going over the wording. If you guys are still here hanging out with me around my craft table, thank you so much. And if you're enjoying this content, please give this video a thumbs up. And in the comment section below, tell me what your favorite summertime activity is. Is it gardening? Is it vacationing? Do you camp? Do you like to go to the beach? What do you like to do? What's your favorite summertime activity? Mine is having a few friends over, building a big bonfire in the back, and just sitting around and shooting the breeze. Now I'm tacking down my dog leash pieces, being sure to cover up the holes that are in these shelf boards. So, if you think about it, a dog leash is essentially nylon webbing, and you can use this for trim, like I'm doing here, or you can actually use it for a very sturdy hanger if you would like to hang something outside on your porch or your deck. I think I had everybody in this challenge messed up because I picked a dog leash. It's really kind of funny. No, it's not. Yeah, it is. I then took a screwdriver, flipped the piece over, put the screwdriver through the hole, and pierced it through the dog leash on the other side because I have some more embellishments that I want to add to this piece. And what I'm going to be adding here are some screws that I found outside. Now, they don't match, which that was fine with me because I'm going to make them look old and rusty, crusty, just the way that I like it. These square head nails were a barn find that I've had for the last 2 or 3 years. So I'm going to be attaching one in the center and then a one on each end. And this will make for perfect hangers. And they are naturally rusty. So that's a plus. An easy way to create rust is by using Mod Podge and ground cinnamon. Now, my screws weren't as rusty as my square head nails, so I applied some Mod Podge to each screw and sprinkled on some cinnamon. Now, you can do this as many times as you like. The important thing is just let it dry in between applications, and then when you're completely finished, top it off with a dab of Mod Podge. Now, as you see there, I shook off the excess and added a hanger. And I love this. Let me know what you guys think. I'm taking this bamboo cutting board from the Dollar Tree, and what I'm going to do with it is make a little riser out of it. So, what I've done is I measured down 1 inch from the top, 1 inch from the bottom on both sides. Then I took four of these cubes and traced out where I needed them to be because these are going to hold up my handles. Yep, I'm going to put handles on my little riser. And I just attached the cubes down using some wood glue. Now, for our third challenge item, it had to be a paintbrush. Now, the sponge brushes are essentially held together with a dowel rod, but I chose to use these old chippy brushes. So I'm bringing out my miter box and saw, and I am going to cut these just right above where the metal piece is. And the cool thing is, I will still be able to use these trusty chip brushes even if they don't have a handle. I then took some 80 grit sandpaper, sanded down the handles really well, and gave one side one coat of the burnt umber paint by Apple Barrel. Then I gave the top of the cutting board one good coat of Beachcomber Beige by Apple Barrel because we're going to be decoupaging that gorgeous rooster napkin. I then took moss chalk paint, painted around the sides of my cubes and the edge around the entire cutting board. Once the paint was completely dry on the top of my cutting board, I applied a generous coat of Mod Podge to the entire top portion and let it dry completely before moving on to applying my napkin. I then took a small piece of painter's tape and used it to help me remove the plies to the napkin. This was a 3-ply napkin, and all I need is the top part, the pretty part. I then took a paintbrush and dampened it with a little water, drew it onto the napkin, and am just pulling away so it looks a little jagged. I don't want this napkin to look like it was just glued on. I want it to look like it was actually meant to be there. And I just keep doing this until I'm satisfied with the way my napkin looks. Once the Mod Podge was entirely dry, I placed down the napkin onto the top of the board where I wanted it. And I'm using a Teflon sheet that I believe I ordered from Amazon. You can also use parchment paper if that's what you have. I just figured this way I would not be buying as much parchment paper. So I took my iron and am going over the napkin, and this reactivates the Mod Podge. And guys, if you're a beginner at decoupage and you have trouble with wrinkles, this is a total wrinkle-free method. Now, before you move on and begin to seal your image, you want to let it cool completely. Now, I didn't feel like this, I don't know, it needed something. I wanted to add some more rusticness to this piece. Y'all know I got to distress everything. So I lightly applied some antique wax, even to the image itself, and dabbed off any excess onto the towel. I didn't want a heavy distress. I just wanted it needed a little something, something. You know what I mean? Sometimes things just need a little extra. So that's what I'm doing here. I go over the napkin as well. Then the last step, I attached 4 wood beads to the bottom. I forgot to show that. I'm sorry. And then I am attaching my paint handles to the top of my little riser with wood glue. And that is it. Check it out. And the chicken wins the day for my absolute favorite. Which one is your favorite? Comment down below and let me know. If you are new and you enjoyed sitting around the craft table with me today, please hit that subscribe button and share it out with your friends that may enjoy it as well. Check out the great playlist that's linked below. And until next time, y'all go get your craft on. Bye.